You know, a friend asked me recently, they said, Ray, what is your favorite garden tool, or which garden tool would you not give up if you had to give most of your tools up? And you know, that's kind of difficult for me to say because there are so many garden tools and garden aids that I really like. So, but I would like to tell you about 2 or 3 of mine today that I think are a must-have, at least for me in my garden. One of those is this little bench here. I think we talked about it earlier on the show, but this is my little garden bench that I was able to actually be given as a gift from my wife a few years ago when I had a problem with my leg. And it's a little stool I can either sit on or I can turn it over and kneel on it, and it has the handles that can help me get up. And so I really like that. And whether you have back problems or whether you have problems with your legs or whatever, and all gardeners at some point in time are going to have a little bit of problems, particularly if we're weekend gardeners and we're not doing it every day. You're going to get muscle sores and fatigue, and so this is really good to have. So I use this a lot. When I get down on it, I can easily get down, and my knees are cushioned, and when I want to get up, I can get up very easily. Actually, I call this my prayer bench because I'm on my knees so much. But the other tool that I really like, and I just don't think I could hardly live without now, is this little garden weeder thing called a Cobra. It really not been on the market very many years, but it's become a very, very popular tool for gardeners. And the reason that I really like it is because it is so versatile. If I want to make a shallow row in a raised bed or something to plant some seeds with, fairly shallow, I can just use this and make a little row like this to plant my seeds with. We can use it to weed with, and that's what it's really meant for. And the reason I like it is because with the Cobra, you can use it on the side or the end, but you can use it on the side and kind of scrape along and get up very, very close to your plants without damaging your plants. So it's an excellent tool. I would suggest that you might want to check these out and see if you can find a Cobra perhaps at your local garden center, because I guarantee you once you use it, you will use it over and over and over again. So I really like those 2 tools, both my little bench as well as my Cobra weeder. But another tool, or maybe I should say a garden aid, that I definitely would not give up in the garden, and I don't think any gardener should, is maybe not a tool, but it's really a mulch. If you have a garden out in your landscape, whether it's an ornamental garden, a shrub bed, or a vegetable garden, you really need to be using mulches in your garden. And I really like the organic mulches. And you have to be kind of selective, I think, in the kind of mulches that you use, depending on what your purpose is. Here we have our tomato plants. And I want to just mention on the tomato plants that one of our biggest problems with tomatoes are leaf spot diseases. We probably get more damage on the tomato plant from the leaf spot diseases than anything else. And those are a fungal disease for the most part that are in the soil, and when it rains or you water, the soil splashes up on the lower leaves of the plants and starts those fungal organisms to develop. We've already got those started on this tomato plant. As you can see, the rains we had recently and the warm weather have started splashing the soil up. We've got a little bit of fungal organisms that are beginning there, and those are just going to spread on up the plant. So I'm going to come in and clip those bottom leaves off that have some of that fungal disease on them already, take them out of the garden, and then I want to go ahead right now and mulch around that tomato plant to keep it from splashing up the next time it rains or the next time it's watered. It's a good idea to mulch your tomato plants and all your vegetable plants anyway, but particularly early in the season, just to protect them from some of those early diseases that might occur. So that's a really, I think, a good tip right now to go ahead and at least mulch around those. I'm using cottonseed hulls. There's a variety of mulches that can be used, but I really like the cottonseed hull because it's readily available at garden centers and farm supply stores. It's clean. It has no weeds in it. It's a great organic addition to the soil once the season is over, and it is readily available, as I said. So I really like to use that in this particular instance, and in many of my beds in the garden, I will go ahead and use the cottonseed hulls. Now I'm just going to mulch around the plant itself right now just to keep those protected from the soil. And then later on, after I put my drip line in, which I'll be doing within the next week or so, I can come in and I can mulch the rest of that row as well. So cottonseed hulls, always available at most all garden centers, an excellent mulch that I would encourage you to use in your garden. I'm using them in many of my raised beds around the garden, and also on the row crops. And also they're a really great mulch to use in some of your ornamentals around your annual flowers and your perennial flowers. They make a really nice mulch, not only as a contrast of color, but to keep the soil temperature stabilized, the moisture in the soil, and then also to keep the weeds suppressed and not have a weed problem. Another mulch I like to use in the garden is also very acceptable to me, very accessible as well, and that's just simply leaves and grass clippings that I have saved from the winter time. I always keep a pile of leaves and grass clippings, and by the time they have composted themselves a little bit through the winter time, I can come in and use those, mulch my vegetable gardens with it, or even the ornamental plants I have in my landscape. Again, the benefits of the mulch is to stabilize soil temperature, hold moisture in the soil, keep the plants clean from being infected from soil-borne diseases, and also, because it's organic matter, it can be tilled into the soil at the end of the growing season. So this is another good tip I would like to pass along to you. If you've got access to leaves and grass, keep those in the summer, in the fall when you're raking those up, put them in a pile and just simply use those for a good mulch in your garden later on. Another good way I like to use this particular leaf and grass clipping compound is over in my asparagus bed on the other side of the garden. The reason I like to use that is because, again, it holds the weeds down, and asparagus is extremely difficult to control weeds in. If you get crabgrass or some of these other weeds starting up in your asparagus, it's very difficult to control. And also it keeps the asparagus spears nice and clean as they come up through the mulch, as you can see. Then the third mulch, good organic mulch that I'd like to perhaps mention to you, that I think you can really use in the garden, is pine straw. I live in a neighborhood where I'm fortunate enough that there are many pine trees in the neighborhood, but I'm probably even more fortunate enough that my neighbors rake those pine leaves up, put them in trash bags, set them out by the curb to be picked up, and I can go by just before the trash man comes and pick those up and use those pine needles at my house. They're a really, really good mulch in my ornamental and shrub beds. I use them a lot around perennials. I use them a lot around my shrubs. And in the garden, because they have more stability to them and they don't break down as fast, I like to use them in the strawberry bed. They would also be very good in the asparagus bed as well. But in the strawberries, as you can see on my strawberries over here, where there are covered with the pine straw, that pine straw will hold up throughout the season and even into the fall and some next year. It keeps the strawberries nice and clean, it holds the moisture in, it suppresses weeds, and I found that I have much less trouble with slugs and snails in my strawberries as they ripen when I'm using pine straw as a mulch as I do anything else. So of all the tools that we use in the garden, and every day maybe there's some tool that's more important than the other, I would say that organic mulches in your garden, whether it's your ornamental garden or your vegetable garden, is probably the gardener's best friend.
We hope you enjoyed this video. It's part of our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. You can also find even more videos on our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.